we now look upon the sacred books of Chaldea and the long shadow cast by Francois Lenormont. To Francois Lenormont, whose untimely death was an irreparable loss to the progress of Assyrian research, belongs the merit of first describing and defining the sacred books of ancient Babylonia, with the sharpness of perception that characterized him. He pointed out two main collections of Babylonian sacred texts, one containing magic incantations and exorcisms, the other hymns to the gods. The magical text obviously belongs to an earlier, less advanced stage of religious belief than the hymns. They presuppose, in fact, a sort of shamanism, according to which each object and power of nature has its own Z, or spirit, which can be appeased only by a sorcerer priest and certain magical rites, while the hymns, on the other hand, introduce us to a world of gods, and their language from time to time approaches a high level of spiritual expression. The collection of hymns Lenormont very happily named the Chaldean Rigveda, and to them he subsequently added a third collection, consisting of penitential psalms, which in many respects resemble the psalms of the Old Testament. All three collections are generally composed in Akkadian and Semitic Babylonian, the Semitic Babylonian being a translation of the presumably older Akkadian text, which was written line by line above it. It was natural to suppose that what has happened in the case of other sacred books also happened in Babylonia, that the magical manuscripts were first collected together, the collection subsequently acquiring a sacred character, and that a similar process took place in the case of the hymns. The whole work would have been complete before the culture and literature of the Akkadians were handed on to the Semites. In this way, the preservation of the Akkadian originals would be accounted for. The very words of the primitive documents and their correct pronunciation would have come to be looked upon as sacred and inspired, while the Semitic interlinear translation served like the Aramaic Targums to aid the priests in understanding the object of their recitations. As time went on, the religious belief which underlay the magical texts became so far removed from those of a later age, gradually passed into the background, the collection of hymns taking more and more their place, as preeminently in the Babylonian Bible. They were split asunder. The theory stated is at once simple and probable. In the first place, there are numerous magical texts which are later, not older, than many of the hymns. Nothing is more common than to find a magical text breaking off into a hymn, or a fragment of a hymn, the recitation of which forms a part of the spell or ceremony. A large number of hymns that have come down to us are thus embedded with magical documents. In such instances, there can be no question that the hymn is older than the text in which it is contained. It is difficult to distinguish the hymns when they are used in this way from similar poetical addresses to divine beings, which, so far from being especially sacred, were employed as spells in medical practice, meaning medical practice has been entwined with witchcraft. Old magic is the unknown. New magic would be witchcraft.